Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, May 17th, 2021, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Last week on Monday, we did a little 1E First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons plus Game Finder, and we didn't spend a lot of time talking about online gaming. I guess it's because I'm getting a face-to-face game started soon, and I had been looking around at stuff like that, so I thought I'd focus on that. But then I realized, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to continue beyond this pandemic to play online games. There was a lot of people that discovered them over the last year. There were a lot of people that prior to this last year did not feel like online gaming, tabletop gaming, that is, of course, that's what we're talking about here. That playing D&D in the various virtual tabletops wasn't something they were interested in doing. If they couldn't play face to face, they would just, not play at all, or they'd play less. If they couldn't find a local game, or they could only find a sporadic amount of local gaming to play face to face, they just wouldn't even bother. It wasn't their thing. But then over the course of the last year, of course, a lot of people adjusted course, of course, and gave some online virtual tabletop gaming uh, programs and sites and opportunities a try. Especially true in regard to conventions that switched. Gary Con being one of the notable ones around here because it happened so early and happened twice. But certainly Gen Con did make their effort last summer to do an online convention, which was, you know, pretty successful. I don't think relative to their face-to-face convention, I don't think it was successful as Gary Con's virtual game convention relative to its face-to-face convention because it's a smaller convention and there's a lower threshold of success, I think. I think they just Gen Con didn't want to leave people out in the cold that were starting to do more virtual gaming anyway. And then, of course, Gamehole Con last November, and there were conventions like Virtual Greyhawk Con, which, as I understand it, will continue to be an online convention. North Texas RPG Con, woohoo, my friends down there. Always wishing I could have gone or would be able to go to that, but I think it's just not in the cards even as I get older. um, but what a great convention that is, and they did a virtual thing and then tried to keep going through the summer with a continuing program of online games. And while that was only mildly successful, I think the convention itself from last June, with only a couple of months to switch gears, did a pretty good job. And this year, they're face to facing down there early June. So that's coming up in just a couple few weekends. So, if you have time off and you've got a little cache of moolah that makes it possible for you to go to North Texas RPG Convention, the hotel they use is right by the Dallas Fort Worth Airport, and as I understand it, it's a very easy thing to do as far as logistics are concerned. So go check that out. Um, what else? But the virtual conventions, I guess the point being that a lot of these conventions are going to revert to being physical conventions. And a number of conventions that were started as online conventions are going to continue as online conventions. But also, a number of these physical conventions are going to continue to have an online component for their fans worldwide who can't make the trip to the location where the physical convention is happening. So if you want to be a part of GaryCon, but you are like my friend Heath in Australia and just can't come up year after year, still being a part of it is a very real possibility now that these past two online conventions have happened and they've become acclimated to running these things and inviting people from all over the globe to join in the celebration of Gary and his works and all of the other things that are part of that. All of his friends and supporters and co-workers and co-creators who put out things back in the day. Dave Arneson, of course, and even the Blooms and all the others that worked on the early D&D stuff, and the Ernie, who's still around and helped forge all of that. Um, all of those people that are showing up at these regular ones, and I can't wait for 2022 to happen again. As far as online conventions, I had talked last week about a forum, or as far as online gaming and game finding is concerned. I had talked last week about a Facebook group, which I think I'll pop back over here and have a look at this. Once again, the old school D&D group finder. It's a public group for first edition, second edition, all of the basics and retro clones that are similar to them. And we talked about this as a way to find face-to-face games. But over this last year, this has become just as much a group about finding games that were geared to Roll20 and other online games. Now, of course, we'll talk about this in a little bit. There are there are game finders on individual virtual tabletops as well, and we'll look at the Roll20 one because it's the one I'm most familiar with. But you can find similar search engines on the other virtual tabletop websites that'll help you find games and specific games to specific editions. Of course, here we talk mostly about first edition and uh, adjacent rule sets. There's been a bit of a meme problem over here or lately on this, but they've been cleaning that up. Monday night, first edition, using Discord and Astral virtual tabletop, which of course is the virtual tabletop that's tied to RPG Now slash Drive Through RPG. I know RPG Now is a kind of a defunct term since it was phased out. Uh, it had been combined with Drive Through RPG under one bookshelf, which is OBS, not to be confused with the streaming software. But as this kind of and I'm not sure exactly how they're connected, but I know Astral Virtual Tabletop is supported by the same people that are tied to Drive Through RPG. So it's not a fly by night virtual tabletop, and I don't know how many are fly by night efforts. I don't know how well funded they have to be. I think they need to be supported in that they're continually improved rather. I think they need to be patched when things are funky, something doesn't work the way it was supposed to work, or when some new module or addition to the programming then creates some sort of a bug in is incompatible with some earlier programming and needs to be patched. So when they stay up with that sort of stuff, and I've seen an abundance of evidence that Astral is very well taken care of in that regard, then I think you see that this stuff works pretty well. I think people would do well looking for that. Now, of course, a lot of people talk about Fantasy Grounds. It's been around a long time and certainly has a good track record of being updated and fixed and whatnot. Um, the interface might be a little trickier than something like a bare bones sort of roll 20 approach. Um, Astral seems to be somewhere in between. Pretty intuitive, but at the same time has a lot of neat features like weather. I mean, a lot of these sites they do dynamic lighting and that sort of thing, or are on the verge of doing those, and that's a great thing. It's certainly one of the more useful fancy functions, if you will. But adding weather in was something Astral did very early on, and I think that's really neat. Um, Depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a map and a grid and something that moves tokens around more like at a game table, or if you're looking for something with all the bells and whistles that has more of a feel of say, a video game, then there are a lot of options out there that run the gamut. And there are a lot of ways of using almost any of these virtual tabletops in ways to emulate those feelings or those. But being old school, um, you know, somebody who is used to using a Chessex map or, occasionally some dungeon tiles and that sort of thing. That's a far cry from that video game style implementation. Let's look at a little more of that, though, over on that group finder so that we can see what we got there. Oops, where are we going? Oh, I see what I did. I'm on the wrong. This is what we want. Here we go. Pop this up here. Once again, I'll just flash it again for people that are just coming in. Old school D&D group finder. 1E AD&D. This is a public Facebook group. 2E all the basics retro clones. Let's get back down here. This guy doing a couple of roll 20 things. We just passed him. We looked at this Astral. And a lot of these use Discord too. You do yourself a favor at the very least starting to get a Discord account right away. And there are a fair number of games that get run on Discord alone with the sort of theater of the mind mentality. And occasionally, they have a text forum over there. You can drop pictures in. You can link to simple virtual tabletop, um, virtual tabletop, or rather whiteboard um, websites that have functionality like a battle map. So you can use Discord in conjunction with something like that. It doesn't have to be a full-blown virtual tabletop website, but it's all there. Thousands of thousands of people are using these things. Hundreds of thousands of people are using these things every day. So they just keep getting improved. Yeah, see what I mean about. There's a game I'm getting set up to run at Lake Geneva Games, 1E AD&D. If you're looking for something like that, I think we've got 6 or 7 people. It'll be organized in the next few weeks to get kicked off and character creation get going uh, in early mid June. So that's coming up fast. I think we have 6 or 7 people already committed to playing regularly on Tuesday evenings. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Here's a guy looking in Cornelius, North Carolina, looking for other players just in general. Um, hmm, Still looking for players. Shady Dragon, Grand Duchy of, so there you go. There's a familiar name. I'm looking at Mystara kind of stuff, so BXOSE. So with house rules on Discord. So there's a good Discord game being run. I'm scooting past some of these still have openings beyond the Ruber Shrill B5 module, based on the B5 module. Friday night, looking for 3 to 6 players on Roll20. So there's a lot of this stuff that's happening May 2nd. So this is all from this month. And you know, these games don't run every single day. This is an in-person one in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Keep on the Borderlands, 1 slot left. This one might be full by now, but format Discord and Fantasy Grounds. He's got the Ultimate license. So you know that's going to be a bells and whistles kind of a game. Put a post saying I was going to make some tokens. See, there are other forums for that sort of thing. They need to clean some of those up. The non-game finding, game player finding posts just clutter this group up. There's not a lot of it. There at times it fluctuates between a little and a lot, and they clean it up every time it does. So I expect they'll continue to get those things fixed. Here's a Epic Game Dwarven Forge stuff. How's that? Twitch channel. Games being run. Now that's to watch a game being run online. Okay, so they're not looking for players, but I suppose there are some things like that can help teach players or teach how to conduct themselves, can teach DMs how to better run a game. I'm not so sure that that's good for this group because it gets in the way of game finding. 3 to 6 players on Roll20. There's another one for Roll20. And speaking of Roll20, I thought we'd take a look at that too. There's a couple of ways to use the search engines on Roll20 to find games and find players for games. There's a player directory, and both of these are going to be under here. Player directory. We'll get back to that. There it is, player directory, and also there's a game finder, which you can see. Join a game is what you're looking for to get to this. And you just give it a search. Now, a lot of these groups, these virtual tabletops, just kind of combine first edition and second edition. And it's fair enough that a lot of people that use second edition dip back into first edition. And there are a few people that play first edition that will occasionally port a rule back from second edition to use it in first edition. But I really think they should have kept those separately because I've seen, even for myself, when searching for games, that if you're looking specifically for first edition games, sometimes you just run into a whole slew of second edition games, and it's not quite as useful when they're not separated. So let's just do this. Find games that welcome new players. You can check that box. Show games with mature content. So you actually have to opt into that one. And previously that was only find games that welcome new players, or only find games that are free to play. So let's do the free to play, because a lot of people are taking little, I'm not saying they're professional DMs, but they're looking for people to kick in a little bit so that when they pay for assets, whether it's tokens or maps or other features, or of course, they regularly pay to have the premium memberships at these virtual tabletops. And sharing the cost is a nice thing to do. So if we do a quick search by that, free to play, just to give us an idea what's going on with that. And you just got a handful right now that are looking for players. There may be dozens and dozens of games that are ongoing. And when they have a player leave, they'll open it back up. They'll say we need one extra player for an ongoing game. These are not necessarily brand new games that are recruiting a whole bunch of players all at the same time. So be sure to read all of the details in there. Find out if there are regulars. Also, this one says voice only. A lot of them will. Video and voice. A few of them will say that. So do yourself a favor and make sure you're all set. Make sure you've tested those things out. That you've got a headset, that you've got a webcam, that you're ready to step up with the technology that's expected of you if you say you want to join one of these games and it's something they call for. It's very important not to jump into a new game only to realize you didn't read the description enough, and they're looking for people that have webcams and do video and voice, and you've only played virtually using voice in the past, so you don't even have a webcam, or you don't have a functioning webcam, or you're not you have one, but you just don't know how to use it right. And these are things that you can test out before you jump in and slow up somebody's game and make a bad first impression. Try to avoid that. We'll take a look over at this player directory. Find players seeking any of these games. So let's just have a look at first edition. And again, I'm just specifically looking at first edition games. If you wanted to look for Osric games or any other sort of retro clone, you can search by those things and also find them. And some of them will carry over, or some of them you can jump right in if you're a first edition player, or you're looking for players that might want to join a first edition game, but they're not familiar with that. So then we've got all of these. Shane. I wonder if that's the Shane I know. Could be our buddy. Hey, George. Thanks for joining us in the chat there. Yeah, it's coming to the table with the right equipment. George says great advice on how to get started with VTTs. Yeah, it's very important, and you'll find people from all around the world. So be sure you, when you check with people like that, Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, when you find people or you're looking for players, make sure you get together with them on, where they're located and what sort of times they're available. You may be running a game right in someone's regular work day. And, if you don't lead with that, if you don't discuss that right up front, you could spend a good deal of time talking about games and getting stuff rolling and maybe even starting up characters and then realize you guys have incompatible schedules, so it's never going to happen anyway. And now you're an hour, 2 hours into the planning stages when you suddenly said, "Oh wait, I'm on the opposite side of the world," and when you're running a game, I'm at my 9 to 5 job. You're it's just not going to work. So make sure you get those kind of logistical details. Get your equipment sorted out. Be sure to clear up locations and times with people, and do yourself a favor. It's nice to have more people to game with, and it's nice to try to feel open about it and to want to invite as many people, even if they say, hey, I can only make it every other week. Well, I'm looking for people to play every week, but I suppose it's okay. You know, put them on a short list. Say, you know what? If this game winds up defaulting to every other week, by all means, I'll contact you back right away. But I am looking for weekly players right now, and it may be once I have a handful of weekly players that a person who's only there sporadically or every other week becomes a hindrance to the rest of the group, and you spend a half hour at the beginning of every, maybe you can only play for 3 hours, half hour at the beginning of every 3 hour session catching up somebody every other week, and then deciding what to do on the weeks when they're not there to pick up the slack because you'd gotten used to them being around on those every other weeks. So do yourself a favor and try to set up the ideal game as much as possible for as long as you can before accepting substitutes and alternatives that may not be the best fit in the long run for an ongoing campaign. And, I say don't sell yourself short on stuff like that too, but in some respects, just running, if you're new to doing this, just running some one-shot games, maybe with some people you know, maybe just in general with people in a Facebook group or on MeWe or that you know from Instagram as regular followers or whatnot. Just run a few one-shot games just to get a feel for the virtual tabletops and stuff with no pressure that it's going to become an ongoing campaign, but with the idea that you may be priming the pump with some of these people that play in the one shots to big regular players of yours down the line. So keep that in mind. So there you go. That is the that is a decent look at some of the Roll20 options for the player directory and for the looking for groups, find games to join listings, and also once again the Facebook group, the old school D&D group finder. Just some options for finding games online going forward. Even with, as we said at the top, even with things opening back up here in the United States and worldwide, many other countries, and that'll continue to build. A lot of people have found online gaming as now a useful alternative to face-to-face gaming, or maybe they've always been around as somebody who prefers online gaming, and now have just found this sort of embarrassment of riches of players that were new to online gaming that were available over this last year. Some of whom will move back to face gaming and abandon online tabletop gaming, but others who will keep it as part of their uh, regular repertoire, and some who have found it to be more fitting with their schedule and their lifestyle that'll continue to do it in preference to face gaming. But be that as it may, it's all over the place, right? Have fun, whatever you do. Uh, don't sell yourself short. Do the legwork. Get the equipment ready. Read the listings very with an attention to detail so you don't mess things up. And that's all the advice I have right now. We'll revisit this topic down the line as things continue to change in the world over the next 3 months, 6 months, a year. We may see more and more online gaming, and we may see some shifts that need to be addressed. And it's fun to just kind of look at these just fun to look at some of these options. And of course, as virtual tabletops continue to grow, I think next time we look at this, we should look at some of the other virtual tabletops. So I'm going to have to spend some time getting to know their search engines and that sort of thing. Anywho, I want to thank everybody. Thank you, George, and everybody in the chat everybody on Twitch who checks in with us. I appreciate it. If you do follow this on Twitch, follow it. Click that follow button and make sure you're part of the mix there and pop into the chat when you're around following. By all means, say hello. Also, you can do that on Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central because that's when we do the show. We immediately upload it to YouTube to archive it there so you can check it out if you can't make the live show. And if you do check it out on YouTube, be sure to give us a thumbs up for videos that you watch and enjoy. Subscribe to the channel, of course, and click that little bell to get notifications for when new episodes are uploaded. And by all means, make comments if you have some constructive criticism. If you want to just join in the conversation, please feel free to do so. Well, that's about it. Thanks to everybody who's checking this out. And this has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye bye.